Hello, everyone. This is Teri. This is the shared recording of the Stars and Cars Chronicles by Amethyst Astro podcast and my YouTube channel, Amethyst Astro Tarot. And today I have a really very nice guest, astrologer, tarot reader, and I'm thinking that I can call her probably a great musician. So, and I have been in touch with Christa, who some of you may know as Practical Astros, also on social media, also Christa de Mayo as well. So, on Twitter, the Bird app. Many years ago, we have been always in touch, exchanging tweets and like exchanging ideas, etc., on social media, but we have never had the chance to come and like meet in person. I think this is the nearest that we can get, but at least it's on Zoom and we can like talk to each other and getting our Turkish coffees and everything, or Greek coffee, however you want to call it. It's the all same taste and everything. So welcome, Christa. Thank you very much for joining me today. It's really nice to meet you in this way. Please, if you would like, you can start introducing yourself so everyone knows. Some people already know you, but for the people who don't know you, please, if you can introduce yourself, I will appreciate a lot.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much, Teri. I was thinking about, I joined Twitter a long time ago, mainly just to kind of follow news stories but didn't really engage in Twitter until about 4 or 5 years ago. And Teri and Tyler were like my two buddies on there that talked astrology and tarot. And so it was nice just to connect with Teri for that reason. But then also I have a special love for Selda, the musician, the Turkish musician, and nobody ever knew who Selda was, but Teri does. And so that just, endeared Teri to my heart even more. So yeah, I'm Christa, and the my nom de plume on Twitter is Practical Astros. I have an astrology consulting business, but I play with tarot and weave it into my astrology practice, more on like more of a divination tool. And I'm just excited to be here to talk tarot and astrology, and also just to get to meet you and as close to personages as we can. So thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. So I will start like first with the astrology.
Sure.
Like how did the journey start for you with astrology? I know that you have like professionally in that sense like more out recently, but as far as I know, it hasn't been that recent. It has been actually a long journey until now,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I got into astrology as a teenager, very quietly and secretly, because my parents are um, extremely religious, and so astrology was antithetical to their faith. Anything that is not strictly biblical is antithetical to faith. So I just learned to just kind of keep it in my back pocket. And so I just started reading astrology books very young and always had it just as like a hobby. I had a few astrology friends growing up, but mostly it was books. I, had an ephemeris and would look up different planets, and I read kind of pop astrology, modern astrology. I was reading this book today, and the author Jeffrey Cornelius was talking about how the demise of astrology with the Renaissance, and with like beginning in the Renaissance and ending with the scientific revolution, and how there he described it as there is an island of modern astrologers that have survived the shipwreck without actually acknowledging that the ship has actually gone. And so they're kind of just circulating on this island of delusion that nothing has really changed. But it kind of cracked me up, because I was on that island of modern astrology, not really realizing, the vast oceans of knowledge that still existed in all forms of astrology. But coming back to astrology simultaneously through understanding Hellenistic astrology was really kind of my re-entry into where I'm at today, meaning learning that things were books written before the 20th century, basically. I just didn't know. It wasn't surface level, but it was, I was just casual with it. And during the beginning of my Uranus half return, which I'm currently in. I'm 43, and so I have Uranus at 23 degrees Scorpio, and Uranus right now is at 21 degrees 48 minutes because it's going to be conjoining Jupiter exactly in about 12 hours. And so I'm right there at that Uranus half return. And, having Uranus in the first house, there's a sense of ownership that I have with Uranus where I like those lightning bolts of ideas that come through and rapid shifts in identity. And when I had that Uranus half return, what shifted for me was my openness to my relationships about my astrology study. And that when I started to just be more open about it, it's not like I came out and announced that I was astrologer. I mean, I did to like a group of children, and that kind of helped break it open. But I just openly kept books on my shelf, and I posted about it on my personal pages, and I talked to people about it, and I just wasn't as cloaked with it. And that really opened me up to finding an astrology school and finding an astrology community, which, I mean, it sounds idiotic, but I didn't even know there was an astrology community. It just didn't even occur to me. And so that really helped form and solidify and concretize my passion for it. And then once I found Hellenistic and saw the beautiful mandala of mostly the Thema Mundi and how many lessons upon lessons upon lessons there are in the harmony of ancient astrology, that I just, I am still falling down the rabbit hole, but in a very purposeful way. I feel like I'm falling headfirst instead of falling backwards like Alice did. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's great. I'm like, because it's like, I think it's so best knowledge, as I always say. I mean, with everything I think in the world, that what we know is the drops in the ocean, but I think it holds for astrology as well. It's like every time I think you scrap a level, more comes out of it, and then
Mm-hmm.
you want to learn more, and then you go like digging, how
Yeah.
can I go deeper deeper, and then yeah, that you go to, as you said, yeah, you are going down the rabbit hole, but in a way it's a volunteer thing, because it's
Yeah.
like it's I think it's not only like practicing it, it's only like the idea of it, the
Mm.
philosophy of it, whatever it's behind. I mean, for everyone, astrology stands in a different way. Divination, science, art, I don't know, mythology, whatever. It's like whatever the purpose is, I think it's like you just want to learn more and expand your knowledge, understanding, and everything about it.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
And I think people can come out, or when you start to first scratch that surface, and then you can become overwhelmed with the all of the areas of study. I mean, when I started the Hellenistic course, I was like I was just taking little morsels of zodiacal releasing and perfection years and the Thema Mundi on its own, and exaltations and the exaltation degrees and who the chart rulers were, and where the joys were, and looking at circumambulation through the bounds, and looking at all of these timing techniques. The timing techniques were just fascinating to me, like reading a solar return chart. I mean, all of these things was overwhelming. And so my advice to people when first kind of, because one, you have that enthusiasm, you just want to like wood chip information into your mind, you want to just consume it as quickly as possible. But there's such you always return to it. So there's such beauty in taking things and sitting with them. I believe that if you're called to astrology, there's a point where your own transmission of that information is just as vital as the transmission that was written in a book. And so me studying zodiacal releasing and just studying my own patterns, I don't have to just refer to books the entire time I do it. I get to reflect on my own nativity and reflect on my own experience with the transits. And if I share that with someone else, it just furthers the conversation about it. And I believe that the transmissions of astrology and how transmissions come through experiences of transits to your natal chart and discovery of even looking back through time. That transmission is continuous through modern day. So you and I can contribute to the understanding of astrology just by studying our own nativity and those of the people around us or of our clients, and add to the data pool of experience through transits and a more revealing of the timing techniques that are there. And so my advice would be like, don't rush. You're never going to learn all of it. That's the humbling thing was like, oh, I don't have to learn all of it because it's impossible for me to learn all of it. So find the areas of study that are the most sparkly to me. Like crows are attracted to the shiny things. And I kind of think astrologers are like crows a lot. We just like find a shiny thing and we all like fly over to it and we peck at it. Like this year is like the year of the decans, right? We're all studying the decans. We're all writing about the decans. Like the murder of crows that is astrology, like popular astrology right now, is like we're all pecking at the decan shiny bits because it's exciting. We're all learning it together, but I feel like we all can transmit something particular through our own filter about the decans. And this collective work will go on and inform future generations about what the spiritual and powerful message the decans can have to us. And that ties it into tarot, because I have always worked with the decans just through the tarot images. I didn't really understand them in an astrology sense.
Yeah, exactly. I think with me also I think first decans, I mean, it started with tarot. I mean, like, because I was like looking through all the pips or like minor arcana cards that some people would know. It's like it was all, I mean, through the decans. I mean, like making that connections, etc. It's the how we can incorporate in a way astrology into tarot in that sense, because it's you find the connections instead in addition to intuition and the meanings and what the cards give with the depiction. And I think that decans part also, I think, add a lot. What do you think about that?
Yeah. I mean, arcana just means secrets, right, in Latin.
Yeah,
so
right.
it's like the minor are just the minor secrets, but because they speak to the individual, like, you were born with, your luminaries in one of, one decan. You might have the sun of the moon in the same decan, but like you have these two pip cards that are kind of like your personal secrets. And so just working with those pip cards can reveal a lot just about you as the character in your story, the circumstances that you're in, the plot line that you're living, and then the relationship that it has to all of the others. I mean, I don't do traditional tarot. Like I don't pull a lot of traditional spreads. I just kind of pull intuitively. I read a lot of tarot books, and so I understand them, but I pull more intuitively because the visuals themselves, I kind of feel like tell the story. I mean, I see learning those traditional spreads in the future just to kind of see what other people have done, but getting a visual for it, just pulling those two minor arcana, those smaller secrets of your own chart, and then understanding the decan rulership of it, and in addition to the domicile ruler of it. I mean, all of those, it's like instead of scratching the layers, you're like putting the layers on to get an idea of your own nativity. And I think it's a nice visual way to just learn both tarot and astrology.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like in a way you are saying that you start from yourself first with
Yep.
everything, and then build up slowly with, I mean, with tarot, with astrology, or whatever you are learning in a way, which makes sense because without understanding, I think, ourselves in the best way, how can we give guidance to other people at the end
Yeah.
of the day? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Before I started astrology school, I just spent a year getting readings from different people of my chart because I was like, I got different styles of readings from astrologers that I just found that I liked because I just wanted to learn about astrology. And I was like, this is a way to do it. I kind of know my chart and I want to get different people's perspectives. And so I just would ask them tons of questions about the chart itself. Like, what do you mean about this? And what do you mean about that? And they were a great primer to then understanding astrology in general. But I just used my own chart because I was like, well, I know that one more than I know anybody else's. So,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. Exactly. True. So, you said that you first open yourself, like it's like with the children, coming to children.
mm,
How do you, I mean, like you're a mother, and so motherhood, astrology, tarot,
mm.
everything. How do you combine them, the daily life, and then this part of practice as well, all together? Like, what do you do?
Yeah. Well, when I said that I revealed it to children, so I was doing all the astrology work already. I was reading for friends for free, and I wasn't doing it as a business, but I was reading for friends and I was studying it and I was talking about it and I was journaling about it and I was doing all the things that an astrologer does, except I wasn't calling myself an astrologer. I was like kind of scared to say that out loud. Even now, it feels a little awkward. I feel like I have to like that when I played it into a conversation, it's just like clunky. So I'm getting better at, and that's just my own, long journey to get here. It's not as natural. But I was teaching a homeschool group with my sister about the planets and about planetary orbits. And so we had a child in the center that was the sun, and then we, had the child as the moon and Mercury and Venus and Mars, and we had them each spinning, and we had them so we in a big gymnasium, we physically showed them how the solar system, how it works, in a static sense. We're not moving through time, we're staying on the ground. But then we also talked to them about just the myths of each of the planets, like about Apollo and about Aphrodite. And so it was kind of like a myth class and a planetary class. And at the class, I told these children, that I am an astrologer. And it was such a moment for me to be able to just say that out loud because there's such power in saying words out loud that it just fell out of my mouth so comfortably because there were with children, you don't really get judgments or jealousy, which are two things that really um, that those are my Achilles heel. When people are judgmental from the get go or jealous from the get go, it hurts my feelings. And so children are not like that. Children don't really come with jealousy or judgment, and so I felt safe to reveal it to them. So that's why I say like I revealed it to kids. Once I said it out loud, it was easier for me to say to other people. But as far as using astrology as a mom, one thing I've noticed is, well, I'll back up. So I pay attention a lot with my own son's placements and the weather. I try not to um, enforce or dogmatize astrology to him because I grew up in a religiously restrictive home, that I kind of view astrology can do the same thing. Any sort of ideology, if you just say, this is the only way, or this is the way that I figured out, and you should trust me because I'm your parent, I just, I inherently reject. So I encourage him to ask questions. I mean, that's really the only thing that if I'm dogmatic about anything, it's about curiosity because I feel like he's got to find his own way with it. But I do talk about it. I mention, we do stargazing. So there's a university around here that has a stargazing club, and so we'll go and we'll be able to use their telescopes. And so just to see the rings of Saturn is just moving to me. It's not as exciting to him, but I still bring him along. And I talk to my husband about the transits more particularly, and I don't hide that from our son. But astrology is great for just teaching you how to be observant. And if you're observant and you write down your observations, then that can help you in the future. And so one thing I started to notice, my son is a Leo rising. and he's got Jupiter exalted in Cancer, but in the 12th house. And I have noticed that when the moon is in Cancer, like clockwork, he gets sick. And usually it's some sort of stomach ache or indigestion.
Oh,
But
okay.
sometimes it is just anxiety and nervousness. And I was like, that's so funny. Like he has an Aries moon. And so when the moon is in Cancer, it's squaring his moon. But something about Jupiter and Cancer may be amplifying that. But a lot of it is anxiety related. He's a Virgo sun. And so his own sun can't see the ascendant. And so there's some sort of a disconnect. But I've just noticed it of like being more gentler with him and being more nurturing and not dismissive, because as a Leo rising, sometimes he can just be very dramatic. And I don't always believe that he doesn't feel well. I just feel like he's trying to get out of a situation. And but when the moon's in Cancer, I have learned to take it a bit more seriously and just do things that help nourish his anxiety and nervousness. And so if anything, just giving me that tool to help him. And I don't tell him this because I don't want him to like get a hang up about a Cancer moon. But in my mind, I just pay attention for those 2.5 days to just be extra cautious around him and just witness, because I don't want to create the dynamic that he once a month he gets used to his mom like letting him stay home from school, giving him extra ginger ale or whatever it is, like but it's just helped me kind of navigate his own cycles in a little bit more compassionate way, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
that's really interesting. But the relationship in that sense, I mean, like, yeah, it's sometimes, yeah, it's like we know that it can amaze us, but you can understand that astrology can be really amazing, and like
Mm-hmm.
the guidance that it can give us, like at some points that we just don't think that it can. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, yeah,
And yeah, it's like I think it's I agree that like not telling him like why you are like this, behaving that
yeah.
way. Yeah, like not in a way giving a weight for him at the moment on astrology or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
or getting him. But I think it's a really nice way to navigate with astrology in that sense. Yeah, I like
Yeah.
the idea. Maybe I should pay more attention to that more. Yeah, I have two, so sometimes I think it's too much multitasking for me, so I cannot understand uh, all the time. I mean, like, um, I would like to ask you about also the music. I
Mm,
mean, because there is the part of, I mean, like that, from harmonics in astrology. I don't think so. That I don't know if lots of people are using harmonics techniques, but harmonics is about the music. So I think the
mm,
time that Kepler started using it, it was all about like the notes and everything, and then all the
mhm.
relationships with that. So, music, how is it in your life, and do you find a way also to uh, embed it in a way in your astrology and tarot practice, or is it like you are saying that they are inside me but completely two different worlds?
Yeah, they feel like two different worlds to me. I grew up in a musical home. My mom and my grandmother, who lived with us, both taught piano. So we had 3 pianos in our house. And some earliest memories were of I had little people, is what we call them. They're like little wooden, people forms. And I would play underneath the grand piano that had these little alcoves, kind of like cliffs, cliff dwellings, or they were just like these little homes that my little people would live on. And so I spent a lot of time under a piano. And a piano is a percussive instrument. You're banging the keys on the strings, and so there's lots of vibration, and in addition to sound. And my all of my siblings, I have 4 siblings, that everyone sings and plays music. We always sang at family gatherings. I have a very large extended family, and so I come from a very rich musical just foundation. Like music was just integral to our whole family existence. And then of course, you know, I got into popular music, and I learned how to play guitar when I was 14. My mom played guitar, and I wanted to learn how to play House of the Rising Sun by the Animals. And so that was my first song. You know, I went and saw music very early on. But I guess like there's sidelines journeys, because part of what helped me get into astrology was that I went to thrift stores or charity shops a lot when I was a kid, because I could, you know, I would have grass cutting money or babysitting money, or house cleaning money, and I would go to the thrift stores and I would buy books, which a lot of the books were astrology books. I would get tons of Liz Green and Stephen Forrest, you know, and I found like tons of really great astrology books there. But then I also bought a lot of vinyl records, and vinyl in the 90s was all like stuff from the 60s and 70s, right? And so
Yeah.
I started to just build a record collection of mostly rock and roll, and some singer-songwriter things. But I just loved vinyl. I loved the tangibleness of it. Had a record player and receiver and crappy speakers, but I just loved the element of like flipping the record, and like, I don't know, there was a tangible quality of listening to records that I always loved. And so my purchases were simultaneous. I was developing my musical tastes, and I was developing my astrological understanding. So then moving forward, I mostly dated musicians, throughout my life. I've always been in relationship with musicians, and my husband is a musician, so that's what he does for a living. Is he's a songwriter and a musician, and so I have spent in the last 13, 14 years on the road with him in some capacity. You know, he's touring right now on the west coast of the U.S. And when our son was young, we toured all three of us together in our truck. And so I've been musical adjacent for a good portion of my life, and I do love to sing, and I do love to play guitar. I don't like to perform. That's the thing. It's like I do get nervous performing in front of people. I forget words a lot. You know, I have kind of that. I prefer to be behind the scenes, either taking pictures or just making the whole event happen. I love kind of being a part of the mechanics of performance, but I don't want to be that person on stage. If I am that person on stage, I would prefer to just be like a rhythm guitar player that doesn't have to open her mouth, because I do get a little tongue tied when performing music. But I do love it. I mean, I use music as just you know, self-love and self-care. I love to sing. You know, I sing in the car all the time. I I use it as like a therapeutic modality. But as far as like a public self, like it's not related to my astrology. You know, I have a very full seventh house, and I have a very full 11th house, and so I feel like I kind of fold into my relationships. I don't want to be. I'm not a 10th house sun. I'm not a first house sun. You know, I'm a 7th house sun. Like I want to be in the comfort of being in a crowd of people, not being singular to myself. So when I do sing, you know, I'll do stuff on Instagram, but it's very curated. Like I've practiced it a whole bunch. I have the lyrics in front of me. You know, I make sure I have full makeup on. Like it's very curated. And I feel safe within that, because I can also delete it. I can delete it if I didn't like my performance.
Yeah.
When you do that publicly, you can't delete that.
You
know what I mean?
exactly.
So,
That's the part. Yeah, I
yeah.
get it. Yeah, it's. I mean, of course, some of the things I think we just keep it to ourselves. I mean, it's not like not everything is for sharing or
Yeah.
like being about the public. I mean, it's. I can completely relate to that. I mean, like, but I like that when you put the other day there was a nice post of your own Instagram. This is for my astrology friends, etc. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
nice. Yeah, it was a really nice piece. Yeah, that you saying. So now what now? I mean, like, what do you see? I don't want to ask like that economist type of questions, but what do you see in the following 5 years? Where do you see yourself? But what are your plans? I mean, but I also, I mean, you talk about community a lot. I know that I think that you are also involved with your local community and everything, and also you are part of Asteri Sofia Kairos. That's also it's a I think it's a cooperative of astrologers
Mhm.
that you are part of, and about the community and your plans. What are you doing? What are you planning to do about astrology or tarot and everything? Could you please tell us about it a
Yeah.
bit?
Yeah, I love collective work, and I do a lot of collective work within my own community. I last night I actually resigned from one of my I was board chair for a co-op that I've been working on for about 5 years, and it was becoming the workload was becoming untenable, and it wasn't really collective work, I felt, and it kind of saddens me to leave before my term is over, but it was very liberating to say I am showing up to do this work, and I don't feel like I'm being met with collective reciprocation. And the idea of reciprocity, um, of of energy returning back to you, is becoming more and more important for me. And part of that is my own in my own nativity. I have Jupiter and Mars conjunct in the 11th house, and so I have my malefic contrary to sect and my benefic of sect right there with each other. And sometimes it can feel like a rocket ship, like Jupiter just wants to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and Mars is there just like egging it on. And that has gotten me into trouble. I feel like it's hospitalized me twice because of the
Oh,
inability to say no and to constrict a little bit. It's it can I can just say yes to lots of things, and I can scrape together the energy to put towards the things that I care about. But I'm learning that I can't that doing less number of things but doing those things better is where I need to put my energy. And the things that I can do better are collective works that the workload is shared. So there's the idea that many hands make light work. So if you have lots of people doing little things, you don't feel overwhelmed, you feel just whelmed. Right? It's not
yeah.
an overness of it. And so that's one of my I have 3 volunteer jobs, and that was one that I said I really do need to let this go. So I gave a 6-month notice, basically, like I will step down at this point to give you time to kind of fill my spot. But I just energetically saying I'm gonna not do that anymore has been huge. And then I do work through my son's school, which will also end this year because he's leaving the school at the end of the year. And I'm hoping that time that is now going to open up, I will be able to fill it with astrology, because astrology is the first thing I've done where I feel like it feeds me as much as I feed out. And so going back to that idea of reciprocal energy, like I'm putting energy out, but I still get some of it back. It's not like I volunteer my time or my money or my efforts or my resources or my ideas and it just goes away. Because I feel like a lot of my volunteer work, it just drains me. And then I have you know, I get to put it on my resume that I volunteered, but really, what's that for? That doesn't really mean anything. It's just time that I spent, and maybe I learned some things, but ultimately, if it's just draining, then it's kind of a waste of everybody's time. It's just so um, opening it up to spending more time with astrology, because I do love working within the astrological community. I love talking about what other people are doing, like what you're doing now. I think it's amazing. Just like um, breaking down walls of barriers with astrology, realizing that the astrological world is very small in comparison
Yeah.
to the larger world, and lifting up people that are doing work like writing about astrology, or donating time to people that don't have the finances to get readings so that they can get guidance for their own life. Um, so my local community, I'm actually constricting that down so that I have more time for my astrological work, and then I have the space to have a little bit more ease so I can say yes to smaller projects for more limited amounts of time, and not feel to only feel whelmed but not overwhelmed. That's kind of my mantra. Just get to the whelmed part. Now, the Astera Sophia Kairos Collective is a group of astrologers that I met at Nightlight Astrology School. And at the end of the first year, when we all kind of graduated with our little certificates, we were like, well, we had a weekly study group, and we had a WhatsApp group chat, and so that we stayed in contact, every day, and we wanted to do something together, to have like a reason to come together. And so it came from Celestia Astrology, Sonia. It was her idea initially, and I just took it like a baton and ran the relay race with it. I was like, come on, let's do this. And so it was she and I, and then Sonia or Shauna, and then Janessa, and these are four of us from that study group that really solidified it. There are other study group members that have participated in conversations and kind of the founding of it, but the idea was to, for 1 year, get together on the solstices, the equinoxes, and the points between. So they're called sabbats, and and kind of a witchcraft moment, but it's basically the spokes on the wheel of the year. It's like these turning points of light, and so we're using those turning points of light as a way to come together just for a small amount of time. Like usually it's like an hour, and there's a meditation, just a collective meditation on what is the meaning of this time of year mean. What are the astrological transits? We usually do like a little mini transit from the time we were at then until the next Sabbath. So usually it's about 4 to 6 weeks. And sometimes like we had to do a separate event just to talk about April, because April was a lot. And
Exactly.
but then we also just like talk about like seasonal crafts you can do to kind of, really, it's a moment to pause and be like, what does this time mean? And to do that pause 8 times together and just see what builds up. So it was helpful for us to, we had the safety of meeting as a group, and also gives us practice of like just presenting in front of a crowd. It gives us practice of organizing an online event, getting through the hiccups of Zoom and speakers and notes and building slides and all that stuff. It's just like, it was a nice way to kind of organize us together and give us experience together. And so we're going to have our Beltane events on the 29th of April, and then we've got just a couple more, and then we'll end on Samhain, on Halloween, in October, and that will be 1 full year. And then from there, who knows what we'll do. I mean, we'll do something. We've created it, and it's been nice to have that collective work, but it's that sort of energy that I feel like is, in the long run, just more helpful, because it can generate free resources for people to access, instead of it just being me. I volunteered time, and I kind of really have nothing to show for it except exhaustion and stress.
Yeah, I think I always think that like it's like, I mean, except the practicing it, having clients, etc., we learn a lot of things. And then if I don't share it, either, I mean, like it can be workshop or something, but also online, because there are lots of people who don't have access to any resources. Maybe it's the only way that they can learn or have idea about something. So I think in that sense, I mean, like it's really important that the people can have access to this kind of, like we say, free, but it's like the, like what I have, if I share, because as much as we share the information, the knowledge, and everything that we have, we grow all together. That's my ideology. Probably it's the ideology that you have under all this collective things, etc., that you are doing.
Yeah. I had a reading from an astrologer maybe 2 years ago. It was during the Taurus Scorpio eclipse series, which is my first and seventh houses. And he gave me a reading just on the, because I was curious about the nodes. What are people's opinions about, what do the nodes symbolize? What do they do? And at the end of the reading, he was like, I've decided that you are a treasure hoarder, and that you need to not hide your treasure anymore. And your treasure is your curiosity and your learning. He's like, don't hide it. Like, just share it as you go. And that's been great advice, because I don't feel like, I feel like, especially this year, this is the year of the dragon in Chinese astrology, and it's not a year to be the expert or to be like the top down professor of information. It's the year of being curious and being in the position of just sharing it in your messy, humble way of like, this is what I'm studying right now. There are other years where we will need the expert, but this is not the year for it. As far as my understanding of the astrology, there's an incredible astrologer on Instagram called Zen Wu Astrology, and I went to a Year of the Dragon event with him, and he's just fantastic. And that was kind of what I gleaned from it, of like, everybody just be open about what your journey is, and it falls in line of just this idea of it's important to share your transmissions as you get them. So when you read an astrology book or you have a reading and you have that aha moment, just share it. Even if it seems mundane and small, it might be the exact key that someone else needs to open up this door of discovery that is very important to them. And it's like the concentric circles. When you drop a pebble into water, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Mm-hmm. And if we all just share our journey and under the guise of like, this is my experience, I'm not saying that it's written in documents and then it's proven beyond a reasonable doubt or whatever. This is my experience and this is how I'm interpreting it. What do you think? I think just being in that child mind, if we think of page cards in tarot as kind of being that curious student or child mind about things, like, let's just all be pages this year. There will be times when we're kings, but this year I think is kind of a year of the page, and the Deccan walks that everyone's going on feels very page to me.
Yeah, exactly. You are right about it. Yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah, I completely agree. I think that it's like, I think without having any certain strategy or some like target or anything in mind, just let it out. I think whoever needs it will pick it up, and then, as you said, that maybe even the domino effect will happen, and then it will help a lot of people, and then maybe we also see all the community growing and also being more supportive to each other as well.
Yeah. I don't feel like there's a limited space for astrologers. I feel like it's literally limitless. And there's, if we're all astrologers for our local circles, then there's plenty of room for everyone. And, I don't believe in gatekeeping for the sake of scarcity so that you can charge more for your services by keeping other people out. I think that that's just really foolish and short-sighted.
Also, everyone has their own way of doing things. I mean, like, it's like we have to think that it's like, I'm not like you are not like me, so we have our own way, and then like not everyone gets the same thing from you as they get from someone else, or the other way around. So it's like everyone, since we are unique on our own, we have different things to offer to everyone. So there is no need really for that kind of gatekeeping or something like that, because not every individual can meet the expectations all the world. So that's the thing.
Yeah. And honestly, I think today with that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, my idea of that moment is that, as like the two lightning bolts that are universe, Uranus and Jupiter coming together, it's like, we each have our own individual fingerprint. And Uranus reminds me of having like an electrical fingerprint within our own spirit. And that's what kind of makes us uniquely ourselves. And while we both need to be cooperative and get along and not just be, and we have so much in common with each other. Like we are more in common than we are not in common with each other. But that Uranus lightning bolt electrical pattern in our own psyches provides a unique experience and the alchemy that is readings for people. So if I read for you, our alchemy is unique. Like my lightning bolt and your lightning bolt come together and they make a thing that is unlike anything else. And then when you read for someone else, it's the same thing. I mean, it's like there is no sameness in that alchemy because it's impossible to replicate. And that's the beautiful thing about it. And I hope that during this today's conjunction that we get that reminder of what makes us particularly us, because this moment is like that seed moment of how we will use that potency of power. Maybe we don't all have lightning strike our house, and burn it down like that happened in that one Uranus transit, like 100 and so years ago. But we will all hopefully have that moment of enlightenment or enlightenment where we realize like this is who I am, and I'm happy to remember that inner lightning about us, because it's when you compare yourself to other astrologers, or if you're a musician and you compare yourself to other musicians, it's so fruitless, but we do it still. We're like, I wish I had that client list, or I wish I had that set up as a background, or I wish I had, this school under my belt, or I wish I had the money to go to Norwalk, or I wish I had that person as my friend. I mean, we can become jealous and jealous and jealous of other people's experience, but it's just such a waste of energy instead
There's
of
no end to
being
that. No
there's
end to
no
that.
yeah it's a void. It's a void that you just never satiate. And to remember, like we have things that other people would envy if they knew. And so just to be proud and own and be giving and share what you have, because then it attracts people that would be more partners or collaborators with you than it would be to people that just take from you. Because that's a thing about celebrity. In astrology, there are celebrities. And to be a celebrity astrologer has got to be the loneliest thing in the astrology world. To be famous in the astrological community, you're isolated, and people take your words so seriously. So when you misspeak, like you say equinox instead of eclipse, it's such a big deal. It's like, no, we're just human. We make mistakes, and so learn from people that you admire, but don't be envious of them. Just be in your own concentric circle, be your own pebble for your own immediate concentric circle, and they will make waves, and maybe not as flashy way, but it'll probably be a lot more sustainable in the long run. You won't burn yourself out in the long run if you focus on what you can handle just within your own circle. And also be a service member to your community, of being an astrologer that other people can approach and seek guidance for their lives. I mean, I feel like it's a public service to be an astrologer, just as it is to be a plumber, or an electrician. It's a public service of a different sort. But if you stay in that public service, blue collar, way that is astrology, I feel like it's just, it's more lasting. And I have a lot of fixed placements. I like things that last. I don't like things that just like, flare up and fall out. I like things that have a little bit more sustainability.
Yeah, so it's in a way, I mean, being humble and competing. If you are going to compete, just competing with your own self. I think I think that's the key. I mean, like it's like, because it's like, yeah, as you said, I mean, there are people that seem to be more forward than us, further than us, or than backward. There is no sense. I mean, like filling our minds with that kind of thing. It's like, that did this. That. Who cares?
Right.
Who
Yeah.
cares? I
Yeah.
mean, it's like I always feel like that. It's like, who cares? I mean, like, so it's like, yeah, because competing with yourself, it means that you are just improving yourself.
Yeah.
Because I have to be better version of myself in every sense. I mean, like, not. I mean, like, it's good to be a better version of ourselves in every sense, like as a mother, as a human, as a partner, wife, or whatever, or also astrologer. But it's like, just compete with yourself and try to be a better version of yourself. And as you say, yeah, I think that's a beautiful message that you gave in a nice way, so I won't ruin it. But it's like, I really like. I think it's really important, and if everyone can have that I think mindset more, that feeling more inside them, I think the world will become a much better place for everyone
I
as
think
well.
you'd be happier, like if you
Yeah.
if you yeah, and it's funny when you said that. I dream a lot and I have a pretty active dream life. And this morning
Mm.
I was telling somebody in my dream, and it might have been my son, but I was telling them, okay, well, you competed with that person, you competed with that person, you competed with that person. And I literally said to this person as I was like waking up, I was like, the only person you have left to compete with is yourself. That's literally what I said in my dream. And when you're saying that, I was like, yeah, that's to me. And probably it's coming from just those thoughts of this conjunction that's happening today. But it's also, it's not just like getting better and getting better and getting better. It's like having that movement, like don't ever be, I mean, you can rest, but when I think of, is it the seven of coins, seven of pentacles, like the card of that gardener who's like got his hands on a on a shovel, and he has like all those
Yeah.
coins there in the vines, and he has one at his feet. He's kept a little bit for himself, but he's just like resting. It's almost like he's done a lot of work, and there's probably
Yeah.
a lot more work to do. And so for, when we think about competing with ourselves and wanting to get better, I think it's good to just keep the movement going, because if you're ever, like, I've got it all together, I read all the self-help books, I'm perfect now. It's like, well, no, I mean, the point isn't to get to this point and stop. The point is to just keep circulating, and maybe circulating in different ways, but to keep the movement, because when you have no blood flow to a body part, the risk of cancer growing there increases. Or if you have blood flow just to this thing that is only growing, then again, it's like it's not necessarily healthy for the body. Having breath and flow and blood and energy and all that movement to keep all the parts functioning, just like in an engine in a car, you want to have that movement, and you want things to be lubricated and attended to and kept clean and replaced when they need it. It's like you need that movement. Same with your own spiritual growth or your own profession. You want to have that movement continue so that you can have fun with it, you can enjoy it, you can continue to develop, whether you get better at it or not, as long as you're not just stuck in some sort of stagnant area of your life or your profession, whether it's astrology or whatever. I just feel like movement is important, in a good balance, at least. And if you've competed with everybody and you only have to compete with yourself, just try to, and get better at just enjoying it, whether you get better at the craft or not. Like, get better at just having it be a source of joy for yourself. I think as a good competitive game to play with yourself. It's like, I just want to enjoy my job more, whatever that happens to be.
Thank you for this message. I think it would be a wonderful message for anyone that will be watching it or listening to this later, because I think that's beautiful. I think I will wrap up here. And
Yeah.
really, I think with that message, I think that could be nothing. No closure could be better than that message that you have given.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. And if you tell everyone that where they can find you if they would like to reach to you, in any case, I will put it in all the descriptions, and I will also make sure that I will take you everywhere that I post this. But still, if you can remind everyone that is listening to, like where they can find you, so that if they would like to reach out to you, that they can, please.
Perfect. Thank you. And thanks again for sitting. It's always fun to talk to you, but now it's nice to talk to you in a little bit more deliberate. So you can find me at practicalastros.com is my website. And I'm Practical Astros on Twitter and on Facebook and on Instagram. And I have a newsletter that I send out every month, so you can sign up for that on my website. I have a YouTube channel too that I'm doing. I'm interviewing people about the different decans, and so I'll be talking with Teri about Virgo later on this year. And so that's on my YouTube. Again, that's at Practical Astros. but I'm working on a couple of projects, mostly on the decans. I'm doing writing. I have a writing project on Substack, and then in addition to that, I do client work. So solar return readings and natal chart readings, and perfection years and solar returns are kind of my jam. I love looking at those. They're the ones that are kind of the easiest for most people to grasp. They can find themselves in that story, and it provides a timeline that's a little bit more manageable for most people that are new to astrology. I love teaching people things about astrology, so I like people that are unfamiliar with astrology, but I also read for other astrologers, so I'm not limited to that. I like seeing the joy in people's face when they kind of see the magic of it. I really like feed off of that like a vampire, of like, oh, I love that you just fell in love with astrology right in front of my eyes. So but yeah, Practical Astros, you can find me on most places. And thanks again for having me be as your guest.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you everyone for listening to us or watching us. And hopefully we will meet everyone in other channels again.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.